Welcome back to the third and final session on Awlgrip systems, maintenance and care. In this session, we continue to talk about the maintenance and care of your aesthetic finish and Awlgrip top coats. In session 2, we spent a large amount of our time talking about water spotting and calcium and salt deposits. Just to refresh your memories, let's go over the easy removal of any stubborn salts or calcium deposits. We use a 1-to-1 solution of distilled white vinegar with a warm water solution, agitating this surface with a soft rag so we don't damage or scratch the paintwork, and immediately afterwards we rinse this to remove any of the vinegar solution that may be left on the surface. Finally, using a pH neutral washing soap such as All Wash to clean the surface, thoroughly rinsing again and drying. Best practice is always to try and remove any salt residue or dirty water after use straight away with a rinse down. Once you've washed away any contamination or dirt, we always recommend drying the surface. As we previously mentioned in session 2 on the water spotting section, the water is actually the carrier of the contaminants that can then etch or bleach the surface of your paint. So removing the water will remove the carrier, in turn improving the finish and reducing the risk of any marking. In this section, we talk about polishing and the aftercare maintenance of your top coats. Okay, so let's talk about polishing polyurethane top coats. Polishing or buffing or cutting, there are many different terminologies within our industry and what this actually means. For the purpose of this slide, we're talking about using abrasive pads or cleaning compounds with aggregates in them that are used with a mop to bring back the luster or gloss of a top coat. This could either be due to age or even when you do a repair. So let's talk about Awlgrip top coats. Remember, Awlgrip is a brand name, so we need to consider there are different product names within that brand. So when we say it has Awlgrip on there, what does it actually have? Does it have the polyester polyurethane, the Awlgrip G-line top coat, or does it have the acrylic polyurethane, the Allcraft product, or does it have HDT, which has a unique combination of both the benefits of a polyester and an acrylic? So you've heard me talk about a polyester and an acrylic. What does that mean? Well, with our polyester polyurethane, our G-line product, this offers a very resistant and hard surface. And in the curing process, you have a resinous rich layer that forms on top of the pigment. And this is depicted by the diagrams on the right hand side of the page. So let's look what happens if we damage this. Well, this means we expose the pigment, which is depicted by the red dots. So if we look at the bottom left hand side, we can see the resinous rich or gloss layer has been damaged or cut through, exposing the pigment. And this in turn means we'll get down gloss or areas that we will have to continually polish or repair to keep the gloss and luster. This is why we recommend not to cut and polish these types of surfaces unless being done by a professional that truly understands the composition of the paint and the consequence of too hard a polishing or the use of incorrect materials. Whereas our acrylic product, we can repair and polish without damaging that resinous rich layer. And this has a lot to do with melting points and formulations of paints, which we're not going to go into at this stage. But we really need you to understand that these are formulated in different ways to do different jobs. So if you want a polishable and repairable product, there is something within the Awlgrip range for you. I hope this helps you understand a little bit about what can and can't be polished and why this is or isn't possible. And this is all to do with the gloss or resin-rich layer on the surface of the paint or on top of the pigment in the case of the polyester polyurethane, or the composition of, say, our Allcraft or HDT, meaning that you can polish. For further information, you can always talk to your local representative to get further clarification on this slide in particular. I think this is a very important one. Before we polish or buff the surface, we need to consider the type of paint that we're dealing with. As previously mentioned, with a polyurethane, it's possible to damage the resinous-rich layer on top of the pigments, exposing the pigment in the long term and causing downgloss. With this consideration, we need to understand the types of materials or compounds we're using. Are they too abrasive? Are the pads too abrasive? Are we using clean and well cared for materials and equipment? We need to consider our buffing speed and the time of day that we're carrying out our polishing and maintenance. As we mentioned in the previous sessions, the paint can soften in high temperatures, therefore making it easier for you to damage in your cleaning regime using your buffers, which may leave swirl marks or polish marks as you go. So let's get further into top coat care and maintenance and some do's and don'ts. So let's talk about what we can do. We can wash the surface regularly with a pH neutral product such as All Wash, using non-abrasive pads. We can always rinse the surface down to remove any unwanted or potential harmful materials. And we can use All Care, a polymer polish, to help remove any mild diesel or stains, and this will help maintain the gloss of your top coat while giving a temporary seal or barrier to the paint surface. On the previous page we mentioned All Care, our polymer polish to give a protective layer on your top coat. It's worth mentioning that using traditional waxes could result in a residue that may appear yellow on the surface and attract dirt, as the waxes can break down over a period of time. We also recommend against the use of any abrasive pads or polishing compounds on your high gloss top coats, as again this could damage the resinous rich layer, exposing the pigment on your polyurethane paints. This is when you need to consider, as previously mentioned, if you have a product such as Allcraft or HDT, that these can be polished and compounds used. We also mentioned on the second session about teak cleaners, and we need to limit the contact of teak cleaners and metal cleaners with our top coats. And if we're unable to shield or protect the top coat, we need to make sure that we wash down thoroughly with a pH neutral water to take away any contaminants or potential of etching. We continue on the don'ts, I'm afraid, as there are many things that can affect your top coat and its longevity. So we recommend against the use of solvents straight on your high gloss top coats, such as acetones. And please don't allow wet equipment such as seat cushions or sailbags to sit on the surface of your paintwork for prolonged periods of time, as this can result in osmotic blistering to your coating. We actually see this quite a lot on sunbed cushions where they're left holding moisture, and once lifted after a season, you have lots and lots of blisters in your top coat finish. And while we're talking about covering your top coat, I really want to recommend against shrink wrapping for long periods of time your top coat with any plastic materials, as these can sweat and hold moisture, particularly just after the paint process, as the paint has to go through its 14-day cure cycle. So etching can even start at this point if we allow it to get wet or for contaminants to sit on the surface. So while we're talking about top coat finishes, let's look at some of our wood finishes and our bright work single pack varnishes, for example. These generally are not buffable, but they are easily overcoatable. So traditional single pack varnishes may be recoated every season. We see this quite a lot by the crew and general maintenance. Please never use compound products to attempt to restore the gloss and shine on a single pack varnish, as this will only damage the surface. And the use of all wash and all care on single pack varnishes is safe and recommended to do. So when can we polish the varnishes? Well, we have some 2-pack varnishes in the range that are actually designed to be buffable and polishable. Clear polyester urethanes, such as Perfection Pro, should not be buffed or polished. Again, this is a urethane, and we explained about this earlier. The clear acrylic urethanes, such as Allbright, you can polish, and these are similar characteristics to our Allcraft 2000. As we previously mentioned, it's always important to know which coating you have, so you know how to clean, or even when you attempt to bring back the luster, whether this is going to be possible or not. In the world of super yachts, there's definitely a trend for special effects such as pearls, metallics, or even satin or matte finishes. We'd like in this section to talk about matte finishes and how to care for them. Semi-gloss or matte finishes. It's all about managing expectations. It is possible to maintain and keep these surfaces in their beautiful finish. However, there are always considerations to make, such as fender rub. Any rubbing or prolonged buffing of the surface can give a polished area. This means we are limited in how we can maintain and care for a matte finish, because any polishing will result in a different appearance due to the gloss levels being increased. So let's try and help a little bit, because there's a few myths with satin and matte finishes, and one of the big things in this is their visual appearance. And if you ever go through a paint shoot where you're having any matte or satin finishes, it's worth recommending that your visual sign-off is the only way, as sometimes with a matte finish it's difficult to see the difference between 10 or 15 gloss units. So a gloss unit isn't really the best way to measure your finish. If it looks right, it is right. We should also take extra care when cleaning a matte or semi-gloss finish, because the incorrect cleaning or polishing of the surface can create a glossy spot. And we'll touch on this a little bit further as we go through the presentation. So how do we clean our matte finish? We'd recommend thoroughly rinsing the vessel with cold water to remove any dirt or dust, then using a pH neutral soap, or wash in this case, and a soft sponge to minimize the risk of any abrasion. Clean the surface. Then you would need to rinse thoroughly with cold water that's pH neutral and allow the vessel to air dry. Any water spotting can be removed by a soft cloth using a gentle motion to remove the imperfection. Always avoid washing the vessel in direct sunlight, as we previously mentioned with our gloss top coats. Okay, so let's finish with our matte finish. We should always take care not to allow any type of solution to dry on the paint surface, as this could damage the surface even further. And I think we're all aware that it's not possible to repair a matte finish. You would have to paint to a taped edge or reshoot that particular section. So consideration always needs to be taken when choosing the right top coats. I hope you found these 3 short presentations interesting, and they've gone somewhere towards helping you maintain your top coat finish on your vessels. For any further information, please contact your local Awlgrip distribution network or Awlgrip sales or technical service representative. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for spending the time in going through these presentations.